Alright, we're picking up on number 19 where we left off on the first video. This is giving you a function and asking you to find f of negative 2. So that means instead of x, we're plugging in negative 2. So everywhere you see x, you're going to write negative 2. Make sure you're including these parentheses so that when you type this in your calculator, when you cube and square, it includes the negative portion of the value. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do this on your calculator. Okay, this is how it should be written in here. 2 times negative 2 cubed minus 6 times negative 2 squared plus 2 times negative 2, and that comes out to negative 44. So your value here is negative 44. 20 gives you a function and asks you to describe the transformation that occurs. Okay, so this was a square, so this was a parabola or a quadratic. Okay, this minus 4 on the inside shifts to the right 4. Remember, it's opposite of what's inside. Okay, and then a plus 7 on the outside shifts it up 7. So the transformation is shifted to the right 4 and up 7. For number 21, you're asked for which equation gives a vertical stretch to this parent function of the absolute value. What you need to remember is that when we talked about stretching and shrinking, okay, so this is your parent function. If we want to stretch this, let me take a quick picture of it. Okay, so if we're going to stretch it so that it is taller, okay, what we've done to that, or if we shrink it and it looks wider or narrower, what's happening there is your y values are being multiplied by an a. Okay, so here, to stretch it to become taller, your a needs to be greater than 1 or less than negative 1. Okay, to shrink it, your a needs to be between negative 1 and 1. Okay, so anything between negative 1 and 1, okay, so those decimals, positive or negative, but they're just a fraction, okay, will shrink your graph, make it wider. If your a is greater than 1 or less than negative 1, that means it can be 1.5, 2, 10, whatever, or negative 1.5, negative 2, negative 10. Okay, that's going to stretch it taller. Okay, and this a is being multiplied by your y value. So here you can automatically eliminate these. These are being subtracted or added. Those are a shift. That vertically shifts it. That's not what they're asking. They're asking what stretches it taller. So your a, your multiplying number, needs to be greater than 1 or less than negative 1, which is this one with the 2. So that's your answer. The 1/2, that's between negative 1 and 1, that would shrink it. 22 asks for the domain, range, and the transformation in a sentence. Well, we know this is a parabola. Okay, it's got arrows on both ends. So the domain is going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. Domain is how far left to how far right. Your lowest x value to your highest x value. Range is your lowest y value. This goes down to negative infinity. To your highest y value, which is 3. And that is a point is included, so we use a bracket. Giving the transformation as a sentence, this parabola, the vertex used to be at 0, 0 in the parent function. So it has been shifted to the left 1 and up 3. Okay, so this is the quadratic, or you could say a parabola shifted left 1 and up 3, and it is reflected or flipped over the x-axis. And then you would double check, is there any stretch or shrink? See, from your vertex to points through it, normally it goes 1, 1, this does, or 2, 4, this does. So this isn't stretched or it hasn't been shrunk. Okay, so that's it. 23 gives you a function that's already factored out. They're asking you for the roots, asking if the factors have multiplicity, if so, which ones, and asking for the degree of the function. Okay, you're already set up to find your roots. It's already factored. So when you're finding roots, you're splitting and solving. So you need to set each of your factors equal to 0 and solve. Now notice the last one has that squared on it. Okay, so that would be x plus 4 times, that's a plus, times x plus 4. So I would just write it again, but I don't need to because I'm going to get the exact same thing. But that's going to come in and be when it asks about multiplicity. So when I solve this, I get x is positive 2, x is negative 7, and x is negative 4. So I have 3 roots there. Now asking about the multiplicity, that's repeated roots, and we talked about repeated roots when we did the polynomials. So yes, this has multiplicity. There is a repeated root, and that is the x plus 4 factor. Okay, so which factor? It's x plus 4. So you would say yes, x plus 4. Okay, asking the degree of the function, what's the highest, what's your highest exponent? Well, right now it's factored out, but I have 4 factors because this one's repeated. I would have x minus 4 again because I have a squared, 1, and 1. So if you add all of those together, you get 4. So that is the 4th degree. Word problems, you just need to be able to break down and understand what they're asking. So this says Chemco Manufacturing estimates that its profit P in hundreds of dollars is P equals negative 4x squared plus 40x plus 3, where x is the number of units produced in thousands. How many units must be produced to obtain the maximum profit? Alright, so I've already highlighted the function that you're given, but you may also want to highlight what the variables represent. Okay, x is number of units in thousands, okay, and then your P is the profit, okay, and they want to know how many units must be produced to obtain the maximum profit. Well, we just said profit was P, so the maximum profit, so what would make P the biggest? Okay, maximum. Okay, and we're asked for the number of units produced. Okay, so what is your x when your profit is at its maximum? This equation that I've highlighted is a quadratic. This is a parabola. This negative 4 means that this is going to open down. So this is just a quick idea of your end behavior. This is going to be fall left, fall right. So we're going to have some sort of maximum point or vertex to our parabola. We want to know at that maximum or vertex, what's the x value? You can do this in your calculator much quicker than you can by hand, so I'm going to show you this shortcut. So we're going to have your equation negative 4x squared plus 40x. Clear this out. So negative 4x squared plus 40x plus 2. I believe that's right. Let's double check. Plus 3. Okay, if you go to look at your graph, it's not going to show in your standard window because it's going too high. But you can go and check your table of values. So if you look at your table for when your profit, your y value, is the highest, you can see here 103 is the highest because then it starts coming back down again. Okay, so our highest profit is 103, and that's when x is 5. So that's the vertex, 5, 103. So this vertex is 5, 103. That's your vertex. The question asks specifically for the number of units produced. and that is represented by X. Make sure you read carefully. Do not stop and say 5, because X is the number of units produced in thousands. So your answer should be 5,000 units. Make sure that you read if it's scaled. Okay, this was scaled by thousands.